Yeah, the Lakers, look, they didn't get Kawhi, and that's almost unbelievable in a way, given what they were offering. The chance at what would have been the favorite team in the NBA, and now we've got what looks like more like parity across the league. But you look at what the Lakers have done, and I think you've got to be, at least, even if you're disappointed they didn't get Kawhi, I think you have to be satisfied in the way that they pivoted from Kawhi and landed some really nice pieces.
Yeah, I like to pick on you and all, but it is ridiculous the number of people who are like the offseason sucked for them and this and that. You got Anthony Davis. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Let's not be stupid here. This is, going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. It's almost like one of those things where it's like, how rich do you need to be if you get Kawhi, right? But it is, as we look at it, it's, now some of the moves, the players are all fine. Some of the contract structures, that's a little weird, and we can get into that. Those things I don't necessarily understand or really love, but they're another team. It's easier to kind of talk about who's returning. So it's LeBron, Kuzma. Then they re-signed McGee, Rondo, Caldwell Pope, and Caruso. Those guys will all be back. My Yahoo colleague, Chris Haynes, reported looks like LeBron's going to run the point, which that's fine offensively. He's not going to play the point on defense, and that's what really matters. So, from there, then they added guys like Avery Bradley, Quinn Cook, who can obviously take that on, as well as, Rondo and KCP can both defend the point. Up front, they added DeMarcus Cousins and Jared Dudley. And then Troy Daniels is kind of a designated shooter. And then Danny Green, who's, at that point in free agency was probably the best wing on the market in a 3-and-D wing. That's, those guys always do well alongside LeBron. So, there's a lot of options here for Frank Vogel, how he's going to treat this. I'm curious to see if they start Cousins and put Davis at the 4 where he likes to be, which probably pushes Kuzma to the bench, or do they, go supersize and go Cousins, Davis, James, Kuzma, and Green? It's, there's a lot of different things that Frank Vogel can do here. So I'm really curious to see how he puts this whole roster together.
Yeah, and Frank Vogel did come out and say that he's made no decisions as far as LeBron being a point guard or anything like that. That's not something that has been decided upon or anything. But that whole story, it's like the initial, oh my gosh, LeBron's going to be a point guard. It's like this initial shock, and then you go, oh well, that doesn't mean anything's really changed. He's always been the point guard on offense. It's more a question of who's he, if he was defending point guards on the other end, which I think is a terrible idea, then we could say maybe he's a point guard, but that's not going to happen. Look, he doesn't need a true point guard next to him because he is. You just need someone who can defend point guards out there. And that's where you look at like an Alex Caruso or Avery Bradley or someone like that. I look at the DeMarcus Cousins deal though, and that was the one that shocked me. Not so much that they got DeMarcus Cousins, but the price that they got him at is incredible. To get him for $3.5 million. I think that could be a major bargain for them.
Yeah, Cousins did not look great when he first returned to the Warriors last year. Then just as he was starting to round into shape, he got hurt again. And then he came back, didn't look great at first, but then in the finals, he actually had some moments. So I think he looks good. It looked like when I saw him the other day, it looked like he dropped a considerable amount of weight, which is, really going to be important for him going forward. And I think, him and Davis had a pretty good connection in that time they spent together in New Orleans. Obviously LeBron is, he's the ringleader there. He's going to be the one who keeps, guys going. But I think, they kept some solid vets. I think, Rondo takes a lot of heat for all the things he isn't, but he's a guys still respect. JaVale McGee is, much as we also like to think of him as a goofy clown, he's still a, respected veteran. And then obviously guys like Dudley, Green, and Bradley come in with just a, ton of, things there. This is what's funny is how quickly in the span of a year, it went from being a super young team with LeBron to now it's completely morphed into a LeBron James roster, right?
Yeah.
Where it's
an old team,
it's an old team, bunch of veterans around him and Davis and all that. And I think what they've done is they've set themselves up to be really competitive for the next couple of years as we head into, kind of maybe LeBron phasing out. And then what you do is then you hand the reins over to Davis, and then you rebuild, around him going forward is, where I think this thing is heading. The only thing I mentioned it briefly, what I didn't like is, I'm just going to run through them real quick, but they gave player options to Bradley, Caldwell Pope, McGee, and Rondo. And with Caldwell Pope, McGee, and Rondo, that also gives them all no trade clauses because they'll all have bird or early bird rights at the end of those deals. Then if you're on what is effectively a 1-year deal with bird or early bird rights at the end, you get a no trade clause. So that'll be, kind of, we'll see if it even ends up mattering, down the line. We'll see where that all goes from there. But it's it's going to be curious to see how this all eventually comes together. But I think it's more that was the price of doing business to get those guys, and that's that's fine in the end. It's probably not going to end up mattering.
Yeah, and I think that look, the player options aren't ideal, certainly, but I think the flip side of it is you had a roster last season, the last few seasons, where everybody knew they were going to be a free agent and knew that the organization wasn't really committed to them, right? So when the going got tough, people were playing for themselves and playing for their own stats. And so the hope is that with guys feeling like a little bit more commitment is there, then maybe they will be, more on board with a team first approach. But we'll see. The other thing I want to mention before we get out of here on the Lakers and move on is DeMarcus Cousins. I've already had a lot of fans asking me, well, okay, you've got him at $3.5 million. What if he has a bounce back season and they want to keep him as a team that is most likely going to be over the cap? What mechanisms are they going to have to potentially offer Cousins something bigger in the summer of 2020? Or is it like the Warriors where they were just kind of expecting that he was going to go somewhere else?
No, that's a great call. It's exactly like the Warriors. If he comes back and has a monster year, there's really nothing they can do because they're just not going to have it. And it's a really weak free agent class. So, if you're Cousins and you do have that big year and then get back out onto the market, he could really, bounce back in a big way in terms of getting himself paid and then moving that thing forward, for him, because he's a guy who, let's face it, when he tore the Achilles, really missed out on a massive payday. So that's, right. That's tough for him. So there's just not anything you can really do at this point. You're going to be stuck, pay, kind of just bringing them back. I mean, you could probably give them the full non-taxpayer, but is that going to be enough when there are going to be teams with cap space? And as we've seen this summer, if teams have cap space, they spend it. It doesn't matter, even if they're fiscally responsible, they spend it. So there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do. So I think what you're hoping for is hope for the absolutely best 1 year you can get out of him and then wish him well on his way out the door next season.